Friends, have you heard of a war where the casualties were mostly bullets? Yes, you heard that right, not humans, not animals, but bullets. Intrigued? You should be. No? Well, buckle up because we're diving into the 1932 Great Emu War in Western Australia. It's a tale so bizarre, it almost sounds like fiction. That's right, Australia. The place with deadly snakes, giant spiders, and kangaroos that box. A land where the wildlife itself seems to be in a constant state of combat. You'd think they'd be used to a little danger, but this was a different kind of threat, one that came from an unexpected adversary. You see, after World War I, Australia was like that friend who comes back from a backpacking trip and decides to take up pottery. They were looking for a fresh start, a new beginning. Except instead of pottery, they gave farming a go. They wanted to cultivate the land, grow crops, and build a new life. Lots of former soldiers became farmers. Sounds idyllic, right? A peaceful life in the countryside, away from the horrors of war. Wrong. This is where our story takes a sharp turn into the ridiculous. Because what these farmers didn't anticipate was an invasion of emus. Yes, emus, that would lead to one of the most absurd conflicts in history. Picture this, it's the 1930s, the Great Depression is happening, times are tough, and a whole bunch of emus, big flightless birds, decide it's the perfect time to migrate. The problem? They're migrating straight towards farmland and they're hungry. These weren't your average bird pests. We're talking 20,000 emus descending upon fields of wheat. The farmers are freaking out, the government is getting an earful, and someone has the bright idea to call in the army? Yes, you heard that right. The Australian government decided to take on the emus with machine guns. So, imagine this scene. A group of soldiers, fresh from fighting in a world war, are now facing off against birds. They set up their Lewis guns, those big scary machine guns, and chaos. Emus, it turns out, are surprisingly good at not getting shot. They're fast, they're unpredictable, and they're really not impressed by military hardware. They tried again, and again, and again. Each time the emus basically said, "Is that all you got?" It was a PR nightmare. Newspapers were having a field day. Headlines screamed about emu victories and feathered foes outmaneuvering the army. Section 4. The emus declare victory. The war lasted about a month, but it felt like an eternity for those involved. Let's just say it did not go well for the humans involved. The soldiers were outsmarted and outmaneuvered by the emus at every turn. They barely made a dent in the emu population, which continued to thrive despite the military's best efforts. And they wasted a whole lot of taxpayer money on bullets. The cost of the operation was staggering, with little to show for it. In the end, they called the whole thing off. The soldiers packed up and went home, defeated and demoralized. The emus presumably celebrated with a feast of wheat. They had won the war without even knowing it. The Great Emu War is a story that perfectly sums up how strange history can be. It's a tale that has been passed down through generations, often with a sense of disbelief. It's a story about unintended consequences where the best-laid plans went awry in the most spectacular fashion. About the hubris of man, thinking they could easily control nature, and most importantly, about how sometimes nature just wins. The emus became a symbol of resilience and the unpredictable power of the natural world. Section 5. International Bird Conspiracy. Of course, some people think the whole thing was blown out of proportion. They'll tell you it wasn't a real war, that the emus weren't actually organized. They'll say it was just a bunch of panicked farmers and some trigger-happy soldiers. But I say, where's the fun in that? I prefer to believe in the cunning of the emu. I choose to believe that somewhere out there, on a dusty plain in Western Australia, there's a monument erected by emus commemorating their glorious victory over the forces of man. Section 6. Lessons learned? Maybe not. In history, there are countless examples of lessons that should have been learned but weren't. The Great Emu War is a prime example of this. Did the Australians learn their lesson? One would think that after the first failed attempt, they might reconsider their approach. Well, they did try to control the emus again with bounties a few years later. The emus, however, continued to roam freely, seemingly mocking the efforts to contain them. It went about as well as you'd expect. The emus proved to be elusive and resilient, evading capture and outsmarting their human pursuers. The point is, you can't win them all. Sometimes, despite your best efforts and intentions, things just don't go your way, even and perhaps especially when your adversary is a large, flightless bird with an apparent disregard for modern warfare. The emus seemed almost invincible, a testament to nature's unpredictability. So, the next time you're feeling stressed, just remember the Great Emu War. It's a humorous reminder that not every battle is meant to be won. Remember that sometimes, life throws you a curveball, or in this case, a flock of bullet-dodging birds. These birds, with their uncanny ability to dodge bullets, became a symbol of unexpected challenges. And sometimes, the best thing you can do is just laugh. Embrace the absurdity, find humor in the struggle, and move forward with a lighter heart.